Your Humanities Half Hour is brought to you by the Northern Marianas Humanities Council.
Welcome to Your Humanities Half Hour. I'm Catherine Perry, and today's conversation is for the birds. I mean, literally, we're talking birds today. We're talking about Marianas ornithology. And with us today is Emilie Kohler. She's an ornithologist. And Amanda Deleon Guerrero. She's an assistant wildlife biologist. And they are both with the CNMI Division of Fish and Wildlife. Ladies, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for having us.
I'm pretty excited because one of the challenges of talking about humanities is finding ways that science relates to the humanities. And I think we're on track today with what we're going to talk about. The study of birds, of course. And we wanted to start off talking about the endemic species here in the Marianas and how they relate to the Chamorro and Carolinian culture. Maybe you could start us off with defining what does endemic mean?
Yeah, so an endemic species is one that is only found in a particular geographical area. So the endemic species that we're going to be talking about today are only found in the Mariana Islands. Some of them are only found on one or two of those islands.
Okay, cool. So I know you have a bird field guide online, which is very interesting. Maybe we can run through some of the birds that you have there and tell us a little bit about what makes these birds unique. And as you said, they're all found only here in the Marianas.
Yeah, so on our website we have a field guide that you can take with you on your smartphone, and it also has bird calls on it. So if you hear something, you can compare it to what the app has for its recording.
Oh, you know what? Why don't we go ahead and give that website right now in case anybody would like to log on while we're talking about these? I think that would be pretty interesting. It's www.dfwcnmi.com. That's Department of Fish and Wildlife. dfwcnmi.com/field-guide. dfwcnmi.com/field-guide if you want to see the birds that we're going to talk about right now.
I guess we could start with some of the species that are only found on certain islands. So on the island of Tinian, we have the Tinian monarch. And then on Saipan, we have the golden white-eye. And it is also found on Agigan, or Goat Island, off of Tinian. And then we have here in Saipan also the nightingale reed warbler. And there's another population that is up on Alamagan. We have the Mariana swiftlet that's found on Saipan, on Agigan, Goat Island, and there are still some remaining populations on Guam. So it's pretty special since that's one of the only native bird species that still exists on Guam and is able to avoid the brown tree snakes there.
So we also have the Micronesian megapode.
And what does that look like? What do some of these birds look like that we might be able to recognize?
Let's go back to the Tinian monarch. They're a much smaller bird. They're brown in color, and they have like whiskers.
Looks like they have whiskers?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because they're like a flycatcher.
Okay.
And then the golden white-eye canario, that's the yellow bird. And then the nightingale reed warbler, Gaga karisu, that's they're like a yellowish green bird. If you close your fist, they're slightly bigger than your fist size. Usually find them in like reeds, tongan, swordgrass. And then the Marianas swiftlets, they're much smaller birds. You usually see them flying in the air. They're black. they're really tiny, so you can only really see them if they're much closer to you.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay. And then the megapode.
So the megapode is what everyone thinks looks like a chicken.
Okay.
Yeah, so they have like yellow feet and they're black. There's a very few population here in Saipan. They're mostly found towards the Marpi area.
Okay.
And then there also is like 2 in Managaha.
Oh, there's
Yeah.
2.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so their efforts to make shorebird nesting grounds is kind of maybe working a little bit.
Well, the megapodes are actually one of our coworkers said that his grandparents used to call them the lazy parents. This is because they bury their eggs like sea turtles do, and they do very little parental care. So when the chicks hatch, they're feathered and they dig their way out of these mounds.
Interesting.
So that they do like to nest in like coastal areas, but the colony that we have on Managaha, that's the real showstopper, is the shearwater, wedge-tail shearwater.
And what does that look like?
So that's a seabird. So it's a grayish seabird, and they actually nest by digging burrows, and they have their chicks in these burrows. So Amanda does all of the shearwater research, and monitoring.
Yeah, so I do most of the shearwater monitoring. So wedge-tail shearwater, Lifaru, they spend most of their lives out in the water, and they only come to Managaha to build, to burrow, and then leave their eggs. So actually, Managaha is the only place in the CNMI that they're known to have their nest.
So when we go to Managaha and we see those little areas fenced off with the rope that say, like, don't walk here, like...
Baby birds here, yes.
Don't walk there.
Yes, because most of the baby birds are underground, and, sad. If you step on them, you can collapse a burrow. And we don't want that to happen.
Okay. Are there any other significant birds other than the ones that you've mentioned? Maybe also something related to some Chamorro knowledge or history?
So we also have the common moorhen. That's it's an endemic and endangered bird here in CNMI. Oh, yeah, they're found in wetlands.
Well, I was able to stop by the canoe house and talk to navigator and canoe builder Uncle Tony Pialog, who was also able to share a little bit of the Carolinian connection to some of the birds that we have here. And he told me about a couple of birds that navigators use for navigation. One of them is called the hurgak. I think it's also a species of fahang in Chamorro. He says it's a black bird with a white head. Mm-hmm. Yes? Okay, good. And he actually knows that there's I don't know if you would call it a colony, but there's some of them nesting on the way from the Dan Airport intersection. Oh, you guys are nodding. Mm-hmm. Going around the curve, he says that they're there. And what he said about these birds is, at least from the Carolinian sailor perspective, is they are an indicator of where land is, because at sunset they are always heading back to land. You guys are nodding. And at sunrise they're always heading away from the land. So if a navigator knows that they're near the land but they can't see the land yet, they will look for this bird. But only at those times, because he said the other times of the day they're just kind of flying around. So it's only at sunset and sunrise that you can clearly see where the land is based on where they're flying. That was pretty cool. And the other one he mentioned was the white tern, which is my favorite bird, also known as Tsunging bird in Chamorro, or hiahi is what Uncle Tony said. He said that this bird is actually very accurate during any time of the day, because as long as they have a fish in their mouth, you know that they are flying directly back to land to feed their baby. So unlike the other bird, which could be flying around doing anything during the day, like once they see that the white tern or the tsungi or hiaki has the bird fish in its mouth, they know that it's heading straight for land. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that is cool. We were talking about some legends that some of the grandparents or parents of our staff had talked about, and another one in for seabirds is that terns and noddies indicate where the fishing is good, because they follow the little bait fish, which the bigger fish are following.
And so we actually have 2 species of noddies, the black noddy, which is Fahang dikiki, and the brown noddy, which is just Fahang.
Okay. Now, of course, we have to mention the special status that some of these species have. Which ones would you like to highlight?
So the seabirds are actually protected from the Migratory Bird Treaty Act.
Okay, and what is that?
So that means like they cannot be hunted.
Their nests are protected.
And so this is all seabirds?
All seabirds, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So you can't hunt them, capture them, kill them. It's different than the Endangered Species Act, which is what some of our other birds are protected under, like the nightingale reed warbler, yes. The Micronesian megapode, the Mariana common moorhen, and then the Mariana swiftlet. We also have the Rhoda white-eye, which is only found in Rhoda, and the aga, the Mariana crow, is also protected. And this takes it up another level. So in addition to not being able to hunt, capture, kill, and collect eggs or anything like that, you're also not allowed to harass them. So this would be, from a development perspective, this means like habitat clearing or even like noise disturbance. So if there's like blasting or loud machinery that's going on that would alter their normal behavior. Anything that would alter their normal behavior is considered harassment.
Yes. Could we talk a little bit about what are some of the major human impacts we're seeing here in the Marianas related to our bird population? And I'm talking in a negative way, of course. What are some of the challenges we're having sharing this small island space with birds?
So one of the major challenges is land use development. So as people build buildings, homestead, it definitely alters or changes birds' habitat. Also, introduction of invasive species such as like the brown tree snake that can eat all the birds or bring in other competitions.
Okay.
Yeah, and along the line of what Amanda was saying with invasive species, sometimes things are brought in and the intention is good, like with the scarlet gourd, it's a food source, but it's also highly invasive. So it just chokes out our native vegetation. And we can talk about this later, but one of the things that compounds the effects that we have as humans, we also have these tropical cyclones. So birds may be able to adapt or might be able to adapt if there's one thing happening, like some habitat loss that's happening, they may be able to get by. But then if it's compounded by a tropical cyclone that comes in and levels the native vegetation, then that might be too much. It drives them to extinction faster. The other thing with the invasive species is that they are very good colonizers. So when you have a typhoon event or if you clear a lot for development and then you don't do anything with it, these invasive species establish and then their seeds get distributed. So that's something else that just kind of compounds the pressures that are affecting our native birds.
And I imagine pollution must also be a very big problem. Would that be more like land pollution or sea pollution?
I guess it would be both. I mean, seabirds are adversely affected by plastics. They feed them to their young and they die because they're colorful and they're not really good at distinguishing what's food sometimes. So that can be a problem, or they can get tied up in the pollution and die. In the CNMI, we have regulations for what pesticides are allowable, and then the dosages for them. It is a problem. NMC CREES has cited it as an issue when people bring in illegal pesticides. So those are not safe for our wildlife. Or if you just apply pesticides in a way that they get into the water supply, if you apply them if you do like a broad application instead of like specifically targeting whatever it is that you're trying to get rid of, that can pollute insects that the birds are eating and then they get sick.
Okay. Indirectly.
Yeah.
I was surprised to see that one of the threats you mentioned was car strikes. But then when I thought about it, there's one particular bird I see I don't want to hit a lot. And I think it's like some kind of duck-type bird because it has the feet like a duck. Do you know which one I'm talking about? I think it flies low in wetlands maybe, and that's why it gets hit.
Sorry, just to be clear, do you know what color the bird is?
It seems to be kind of like brownish.
So you might be thinking of the kakak, which is a yellow bittern. They have a longer beak, and they're usually the one that's more commonly hit. But another common bird to get hit, especially in wetlands like the Tasnapek area, is the Marianas common moorhen, pulatat. So they also fly between wetlands there. So sometimes if cars are going like over the speed limits, they get hit. But another bird that gets hit is the collared kingfisher, sihik, the blue and white ones. Yeah.
Well, they're just aggressive, so they were probably trying to hit you. Am I wrong? They can be an aggressive bird.
I think with a lot of predators, and I've worked with owls in particular, they get so focused on prey that they don't see anything else. So it could be that they're focused on a lizard on the other side of the road and then they get hit. But like Amanda said, driving the speed limit is huge because it gives the bird time to avoid you. And there's a lot of car strikes that we probably don't even see because we have so many scavengers. We have crabs, ants, dogs, cats. So we've had two moorhen turned into our office just this year. So, that's a small percentage of what I'm sure is getting hit. And the roads go right through the wetlands. So, we don't have speed limits to accommodate or mitigate for car strikes in those wetland areas. That's something that would be helpful if there was some grassroots, movement to put signs to warn people about moorhen in the area, or if, just to go drive slower through these areas.
Well, we're talking today about ornithology, and we'll be back with more after this break.
Hafaday, Olamwai, and greetings from the Northern Marianas Humanities Council. This is Executive Director Leo Pangilinan. This year, the Council celebrates our 30th anniversary, marking 3 decades of partnership with the community on a wide variety of programs that help us navigate our human experience. And we look forward to another 3 decades of doing the same. Would you consider partnering with us by making an educational tax credit donation? BGRTs and income earnings for individuals are eligible. And thank you for your continued partnership and support in making our program available.
Welcome back to Your Humanities Half Hour. We are chatting today with Emilie Kohler. Mm-hmm. She is an ornithologist, and Amanda Deleon Guerrero. She's an assistant wildlife biologist, both with the CNMI Division of Fish and Wildlife. You wanted to share another local legend related to one of our birds.
Yes, so the Rufous Fanta, also known as Naabak, so its name literally means to get lost. So these are very pretty birds. They open up their tails that looks like a fan shape. And in the jungle, when you see them, they're like really noisy. And then sometimes you'll follow them. People tend to like follow where they're going.
They're kind of reddish, right?
Yes,
reddish orange.
rufous, like a rufous color. Yeah, so they're actually leading you away from their nest. So they'll get you lost into the jungle. So that's one of the stories with Naabak, yeah.
Interesting.
Yes, and even someone in our office told us they heard from someone that the tsungi bird, there actually used to be a fewer population here, but after the war, when a lot of people like jumped off bonsai and suicide, they would see the tsungi bird fly up, and it's thinking, because another word for them is fairy turns.
Yes. So
it was their souls like flying up, so it became more of a bigger population after the war.
I looked into this bird. It's actually on my business logo because I love it so much. And I think in other places of the Pacific, it's also called the Holy Ghost bird.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so tsungi bird is near and dear to my heart because I am familiar in tsungi.
Really?
So yeah. They're one of my favorite seabirds. So.
Oh, okay. Now, is that from Deleon Guerrero?
It's my maiden last name, Santos.
Santos.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that family name was.
Yeah.
Oh, very interesting. So let's talk a little bit about the importance of the birds to, like, I don't want to say our survival, but, to the balance, I would say, of us living on an island. Like, for example, the Sali bird in Tinian I know is related to the Doni Sali hot pepper. They said it spreads the seeds. Give us an idea of how these birds impact our lives.
Yeah, so we have species that are called frugivores or fruit eaters, and some of them only eat fruit, like the totot or the fruit dove. And so they're seed dispersers. So they're helpful for making sure that our native tree species continue to be propagated. This is why Guam has seen like a total shift with their forests because they don't have these frugivores, these seed dispersers.
Oh, wow.
And so we also have birds that eat insects, so they can be, you could think of them as like pest managers. And then, some do both, like Sali eat fruit and they also eat insects. Historically, Chamorros have used birds just of themselves as food sources. So fruit doves were eaten. They're currently protected under local law, and then they're also protected under the Migratory Bird Treaty Act. So you could eat fruit dove, you could eat white-throated ground dove, Sali, Micronesian megapode. People would eat them megapode eggs. You could eat other seabird eggs. So
this was before.
Before, yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, but if you were a Chamorro and you came to the Marianas, that would have been part of the plentiful food source. Yeah. We also used to have Mariana mallard, and that is extinct. And I'm trying to think what other birds have been used as a food source here. Someone mentioned that that boobies used to be eaten, but then someone else said that's not really.
The taste on the birds, on the seabirds, so it wasn't really delectable.
Well, you'll be happy to know that I have heard that your family bird, the tsungi, the hiaki, is not tasty. So, what is the importance of what you guys do when it comes to like monitoring and keeping track? And by the way, the Christmas bird count is coming up. We're going to give details on that. So if this is something you're interested in, these guys are going to share how you can actually learn more and be involved in helping monitor the bird species. But tell us a little bit about what you guys do, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, so our goal is to manage our natural resources for current and future generations. And it really is a way to tie ourselves in the present to people in the past. Because when you think about it, you're seeing species that the first Chamorros saw when they came to the Mariana Islands. So it's a way to connect us to the past. And then we also want to keep these species around for future generations, so that our children can see and appreciate them. And some species, we're trying to increase their populations so that they can be sustainably hunted again, like the finihi, like the fruit bat. So that is our goal. We're trying to keep our populations sustainable so that we can use them in the current and current generations can use them, and the future generations can use them. So we do a lot of monitoring. I think this is something that people don't realize that our office does. They think of us as being a regulatory agency that they have to deal with only during like development. But we are monitoring these species to make sure that their populations are healthy. And then we're also monitoring species because we have a goal of delisting them, taking them off of the endangered species list. So in order to do that, we need to know what the populations are doing.
Could I just ask a follow-up question related to that? So delisting them off of the Endangered Species Act list, would that be like, if, for example, as you said, they're endemic, which means they're only found maybe in the Marianas or the CNMI, that means we only have to worry about their population here in the Marianas and the CNMI. Whereas if it was a species that was found in other places of the United States, then we'd have to be concerned about the overall population. That's correct. So even if we're doing fine here, but the species is also found other places, they also need to be doing fine. So it seems like the endemic species would be our best chance for getting, if they were endangered, getting them off the list.
yeah, it puts a lot of responsibility on us because they're only found here. And so, that means that their populations are more sensitive than other species that are found in other geographic locations. But like I said, it also means that, we do have a lot of control with, what their populations are doing as well. So Amanda does a lot of research with the nightingale reed warbler, for example.
So I do a lot of monitoring for the nightingale reed warbler, Gaga karisu. So Gaga karisu is an endangered bird, an endangered species bird. So it's protected under federal and local laws. And one of the monitoring that I do is we were actually putting tags on them to track where they were going to see how big of the area that they use. And that can help with their habitat, like help with land use development, see how much, if they're going to clear a land, how much it affects the reed warbler and things like that. I'm also doing a survival study to see how, if they're in a certain area over the years, how often will I see them. And
how is their population doing, say, compared to 20 years ago?
They're declining.
Still declining?
Yes, they are still declining. Because there is a lot of habitat changes. So Gaga karisu, that's reeds usually found in, so reeds are found in wetlands. So they were birds that were mostly tied to wetlands. So they used to have a population in Guam, but due to like brown tree snake, it's like there's no longer in Guam. So it's just in Saipan and Alamagan right now. And so it's just for them, it's mostly due to habitat change, habitat destruction. So yeah, but we are seeing them in other habitats now, and I think that's more them trying to adapt.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I want to give you an opportunity to tell us about the Christmas bird count.
Yeah, so the Christmas bird count is primarily organized by the National Audubon Society, and we have three of our islands that participate in it. So we have Saipan, Tinian, and Rota. I'm not sure if Guam participates. They must have like a circle. So the survey areas are divided up into these circles. So Saipan is a circle, Rota, etc. So last year we had a good turnout of people from the community. It's an opportunity for people to participate as citizen scientists. It's also a great opportunity to bird because this is the time of year where we have migrants or birds from other places that stop over in the Mariana Islands. So you can see some species that you would normally have to travel to Siberia to see. So and everybody that comes out to the count will be paired up with an expert birder. So it is really for someone
That's
with any,
awesome.
yeah. So it's really for people of any level of birding experience, and it's also a good way to meet other birders. So then you can make some friends that you can continue to bird with throughout the year.
That's incredible. I just thought of one more question that only you can answer. Well, I think only you can definitely answer. Why does Bird Island sometimes not have birds?
Like with Amanda's work with the wedge-tail shearwaters, sometimes birds have seasons that they nest and seasons that they don't, and they go back out to sea. Especially the pelagic bird species like the wedge-tail shearwater, they spend most of their life at sea.
So it's nesting time usually
Yes.
when they're at Bird Island. Oh, so interesting. So
What was your hypothesis?
They could also be foraging out in the sea.
Yeah.
I thought maybe
Yeah.
it was a migratory thing. Like you said, some of the birds that come here are from Siberia. But nesting, okay, that makes, of course, obviously sense because you're the ornithologist.
And for the Christmas bird count, we do welcome everyone of all ages. My son, who's 6 years old now, he likes to participate.
Okay.
And he really loves holding the binoculars and looking at the birds really up because, it's up close with the binoculars. And
So they can contact you guys if they have any, or how can they sign up, I guess is the question.
Yeah, so we decided that December 27th is going to be the Christmas bird count. We are going to be meeting at American Memorial Park in the morning. We'll have more information on our Facebook website, so that's CNMI DFW on Facebook. And then if you have any specific questions, you can contact me. So it's Kohler, KOHLER .DFW at gmail.com.
We've been talking today about Marianas ornithology with Emilie Kohler, ornithologist, and Amanda Deleon Guerrero, assistant wildlife biologist. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge today. It's been so interesting.
Yeah, this has been a fun interview to prepare for, too, because I learned so many legends, local legends. It was fun.
Thank you so much
for having us. We really appreciate it.
This has been Your Humanities Half Hour. I'm Catherine Perry.
This program was supported by a We the People grant awarded to the Northern Marianas Humanities Council from the National Endowment for the Humanities. Any views, findings, conclusions, or recommendations expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily represent those of the National Endowment for the Humanities or the Northern Marianas Humanities Council.